Sri Krishna. Realize that which pervades the universe and is indestructible. No power can affect this unchanging, imperishable reality. Sri Krishna is driving into Arjuna's consciousness the great truth that he is neither the perishable body, nor the changing senses, nor the unsteady mind, nor the wavering intellect, but the Atman, as immutable and infinite as Brahman itself. The Lord of Love tells Arjuna the nature of that which pervades the cosmos. All that we see in life is pervaded by the immortal, immutable, infinite reality we call God. Sri Krishna. The body is mortal, but he who dwells in the body is said to be immortal and immeasurable. Therefore, O Bharata, fight in this battle. This body of ours will come to an end, but we, the Atman, are eternal. Here again there is the reminder that we have no end, and therefore never should confuse ourselves with the perishable body. The body is changing from moment to moment, and even in the few minutes you've been reading these words, the body has already moved closer to the great change called death. The mind is subject to even more rapid changes. We have only to look at our desires and moods to see how much the mind is subject to change. In Sanskrit, the word for the phenomenal world is samsara, that which is moving intensely. Being born, dying, being born again, dying again. Whenever we cling to anything that is continually changing, we will become more and more insecure with the passage of time. When we identify ourselves obsessively with the body, every morning begins to pose a threat as we get older and move into the latter half of life. Every morning we look in the mirror to see if there are new wrinkles on the face, bags under the eyes, or grey showing in our hair. Even if, with the advance of modern surgery, these bags and wrinkles can be removed, after 10 or 20 years the same fate will come to us. Such is the paradox of life. When we cling to the body, it loses its beauty. But when we do not cling to it, and use the body as an instrument given to us to serve others, even on the physical level, it glows with health and beauty, as we can see from the lives of many great mystics. When Sri Ramakrishna walked along the streets of Calcutta, legends say people were dazzled by his beauty. His spiritual radiance was so great that it would shine through the body. Ramakrishna did not like drawing the attention of people, so with his childlike simplicity, he got an old blanket and covered his body when going out. When our consciousness becomes pure, even the body begins to reflect its light. The body is the temple of the Lord, and must be looked after with care. Even at the age of 77, my grandmother had a beautiful, healthy body, because she was always aware that this temple had to be kept in good order, swept with the mantram broom, and purified through the daily practice of meditation and discriminating restraint of the senses. We show respect for the Lord within by keeping the body healthy, clean, and beautiful. Any attempt to misuse the body or to indulge the senses at the expense of the body is a violation of the divine presence. Where books, movies, television, and our eating habits are concerned, we must be vigilant to see we are not indulging the senses at the cost of the health of our body or mind. Even with those who are making progress on the spiritual path, the senses can play havoc if vigilance is relaxed. In order to transform our belief that we are the changing body to identification with the Atman, we begin by governing the senses very carefully for many years. This is not done in an ascetic spirit or for the purpose of mortification, but to see that every day we give the body what is needed to sustain it as a spiritual instrument. Just as we purify the physical body, called stula sharira in Sanskrit, with vigilant care of the senses, healthy physical exercise, and repetition of the mantram, we purify the subtle body, sukshma sharira, by cultivating healthy thoughts. Thoughts are the food of the subtle body of samskaras. our mental and emotional conditioning. We are eating this food all the time, and every time a thought rises in the mind, we have added either to the nutrition of the subtle body or to its malnutrition. The unhealthy effect on the mind of anger, resentment, and hostility is so great that it can cause far-reaching damage even on the physical level. To keep the subtle body pure and healthy, we must first and foremost cultivate the virtue of forgiveness. Sri Krishna. One person believes he is the slayer. Another believes he is the slain. Both these are ignorant. There is neither slayer nor slain. We were never born. We will never die. We have never undergone change. We can never undergo change. Unborn, eternal, immutable, immemorial. We do not die when the body dies. Sri Krishna continues to explain our real nature in this verse, which is a favorite of mystics in India. Na jayate. We were never born. Na mriyate va. Therefore, we will never die. Nayam bhutva bhavita vana bhuyaha. We have never undergone any change, and we will never undergo any change. Ajja, never born. Nitya, eternal. Shashvata, immutable. And finally, in a flash of subtle humor, the Lord adds, Purana, the ancient one. Compared to us, the Himalayas are like a newborn baby. When the world was not, when the galaxies were not, we were already greybeards, faltering with a staff. The play of the Lord in which he assumes a body and seems to pass through childhood, youth, and old age is beautifully portrayed in Kerala in the Guruvayur temple, dedicated to Lord Krishna. Sri Krishna is worshipped there in 3 different forms during the 3 periods of the day. In the morning, if you go to the temple, you will see a little baby Krishna in a cradle, being fed, bathed, and sung to sleep. Most children like to go for the morning service. They see that the Lord is even younger than they, and they have such compassion for him and feel so protective that they do not want any harm to come to the little one. This protective feeling towards the Lord as a little boy is very good discipline for spiritual awareness. At noon, Sri Krishna is a young man, straight as a palm tree, outgoing and very vigorous. You see Lord Krishna as the embodiment of physical fitness at its best. You find the peacock feather, the garland of wildflowers, the yellow silk dhoti, and the bamboo flute. Young people like to visit the temple at noon, when it is easy for them to identify with the Lord. In the evening, when the sun is about to set and tropical India is at its artistic best, the old people like to go and see the Lord who, hardly able to stand up with a staff, is ready to shed the body. The different images serve to remind you that these are all changes which affect only the body, and that you should learn to rise above the physical level so that you do not get caught in the cycle of change. Sri Krishna. Realizing that which is indestructible, eternal, unborn, and unchanging, how can we slay, or cause another to slay? As we abandon worn-out clothes and acquire new ones, so when the body is worn out, a new one is acquired by the self, who lives within. In this homely verse, Sri Krishna says that just as when our clothes become old and tattered, we throw them away to put on new ones, similarly, when this body has become unfit for serving others, it is time to throw it away. We should not cling to it. When Sri Ramana Maharshi's body was about to fall away, and thousands of his disciples begged him to continue on, he said, "No, this body is no longer able to serve you. As long as it can serve you, I will retain it. But when the time comes when it can no longer serve you, I'm going to lay it aside." One of the facts about my granny's life that I do not usually refer to is her attitude towards death. For her, death was not a painful topic, because she believed so firmly that our real self cannot die. In other words, even though we cannot but grieve when our dear ones pass away, the mystics tell us that underneath this grief, we should always remember that death is only a change of rooms. They're speaking mostly against the background of transmigration or reincarnation. We should all be aware, though, that the spiritual life does not depend on our acceptance of reincarnation, nor does meditation require that we subscribe to the theory of transmigration of souls. Whether we believe in one life or in a million lives, the supreme goal is valid. The basis of meditation remains valid for all. I would strongly discourage trying to speculate about previous or future lives. This life is headache enough. Let us confine our attention to this life and try as far as our capacity goes to learn to love the Lord here and now. Sri Krishna. The self cannot be pierced by weapons or burned by fire. Water cannot wet it, nor can the wind dry it. The self cannot be pierced or burned, made wet or dry. It is everlasting and infinite, standing on the motionless foundations of eternity. The self is unmanifested beyond all thought and beyond all change. Knowing this, you should not grieve. Arjuna still does not grasp what Sri Krishna means by our real self, our Atman. In this particular verse, the Lord is trying to awaken Arjuna and all of us to the truth of our existence. In referring to our real personality, which is divine, he uses three words beginning with a, which means not, avyakto yam, achintyo yam, avikaryo yam. Avyakta means that which is not expressed, that which remains concealed. Our real personality is not revealed at all. It is very cunningly concealed. It is achintya, or unthinkable, because it is beyond the dualities of conceptual thinking. It is avikarya, beyond all change. Our real personality never grows because it is ever perfect. It is never enriched because it is always full. If we try to understand the applicability of these three terms to our own personality, we may begin to suspect that it lies beyond the fleeting body, beyond the turbulent senses, beyond the restless mind, beyond the clouded intellect. Avyakta comes from the word vyakta, which means completely expressed, manifested. We all look upon ourselves as only our apparent personality, the body-mind complex, never realizing our real personality, which is the infinite, immortal, immutable Atman. If someone were to ask us what we consider our personality, we would be likely to say that our height is 6'3", our weight 220 pounds. To this, a sage like Sri Ramana Maharshi would say, I did not ask you the dimensions of your house. I want you to tell me what your real personality is. If we tell him that we have 2 million in the bank, the illumined man will say, you haven't answered my question. If we add that we have won the Nobel Prize, he would still say, don't beat about the bush. Meister Eckhart summarizes the truth of the Atman beautifully when he points out that the seed of God is latent in all of us. In Sanskrit, it is called the Atman. Meister Eckhart prefers to use the homely expression, the seed of God. He says that just as apple seeds grow into apple trees and pear seeds into pear trees, God seeds grow into God trees. The word avyakta implies that our only purpose in life is to reveal the divine personality that is concealed in all of us. The seed has to be helped germinate. The weeds have to be removed regularly, and then the plant becomes a God tree. The question then arises as to how we can reveal this hidden divinity in our everyday life. To see what noxious weeds keep the seed of our true divinity from growing, we have only to look at people who are insecure, who dwell upon themselves, Such people look at everything, everyone, through their own personal needs. These are the people who say they are very, very sensitive. In my early days in Berkeley, one of the expressions that I heard often when I visited Telegraph Avenue was, "I'm so sensitive." According to this interpretation, insensitive refers to anybody who treads on my corns, although when I tread on another's corns, I don't even know it. In the language of the mystic, being sensitive means being sensitive to the needs of others. You will find that the more you attend to the needs of others, in your own family, for example, the less you will get hurt, agitated, or hostile over seemingly trivial things. In a movie my wife and I saw recently, one that had been highly praised by critics, the daughter could not sleep one night just because her mother had repeated one question twice. "Have you forgotten my candy?" The daughter thought that her insomnia that night was a result of utter sensitiveness. Now, my mother often repeats herself half a dozen times. Repetition runs in our family. And I don't say she's casting aspersions on my integrity. I just say she knows I am an absent-minded professor, and I'm likely to forget things. As long as we're deeply convinced that our parents want only our happiness, that our partner or our children want only to add to our joy, things are not likely to upset us. My mother uses curt language at times, but under no circumstances would it occur to me to think that she's trying to vent some pent-up hostility or to take it out on me, say, because the milkman diluted the milk more than he is permitted to. Wherever there is not this deep faith in those around us, I think that no attempt at courtesy, no attempt to repeat the right words and phrases will bring about clear communication. Whenever we get agitated or apprehensive in daily relationships because of some remark, some act of omission or commission from those around us, the very best thing we can do is use the mantra. All of us are trying to build our personality on the short span of time in which we thrash about in the sensory world. During the Anglo-Saxon period, a few Christian emissaries came to England to preach the gospel of Christ. One of the Anglo-Saxon kings, Edwin, took counsel with his advisors over the new faith. It must have been a bitter winter evening with snow outside and torches lighting up the hall, for the answer Edwin received is as evocative as it is thoughtful. "My lord," one man replied, "it has often seemed to me that we live like a swallow that suddenly darts through this hall at dinner time and passes out again through a far window. It comes from the darkness and returns to darkness. For only a short while is it warm and safe from the winter weather. That is how I regard our life. I don't know where I have come from. All I know is a little span of light until I pass again into the darkness beyond. If this new faith can tell us truly what lies before and after, I think it is most worthy of being followed." The Gita says that outside of this life we come from infinity and go again into infinity. This short spell in between, called vyakta, the finite, the mortal, the physical spell, has hypnotized us so that we say, "My personality lives only for 100 years, from the time my body was born until the time it will die." But in the first word of this verse, avyakta, we are reminded that our life is infinite. Jesus constantly reminds the people not only of ancient Judea, but of the whole modern world, that we can have everlasting life by rising above the physical level of consciousness. This is a great challenge that can set our imagination on fire if we can understand that it is possible to rise so high above physical consciousness and fragmentation that we can see not only what goes on in the lighted hall, but also what is outside in the infinite darkness beyond death. The second word is achintya. Because our real self, our divine personality, is beyond all the dualities of conceptual thinking, it can only be revealed when the turbulent factory of the mind has become completely still. For most of us, the mind factory keeps working 24 hours, day in and day out, without a holiday, and without any strikes either. There is only overtime. All of us must have experienced moments when we have begged, if only I could stop thinking, if only I could close down, put up a little note, "Don't enter here, it's a misdemeanor." If we could, we would find ourselves beginning to reveal our true identity. One of the unfortunate trends of our modern civilization is described by that learned phrase, cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. The mystic says, I have stopped thinking, therefore I am. You can see the diametrical contrast. We are all under the impression that if we go beyond thinking, we are nowhere. If the mind is closed down, we fear we will be out of a job. What will I do? How will I spend my time? What will I dream about in my sleep? The answer is, why do you want to dream? Why do you want to go after personal profit and personal pleasure? It is in forgetting yourself and in serving others that you really come to life. One of the constant reproaches that used to be flung at me in my early days of meditation was, you have such a fascinating personality. Why do you want to throw it away? Look at your intellect, razor sharp. Why do you want to blunt it? Look at your mind, so active, so productive. Why do you want to still it? It is not even possible for most of us to suspect that at present we have no personality. Most of us cannot reveal even one ray of the magnificence within us. This is why Sri Ramana Maharshi and other mystics will not take us seriously when we say we live. The mystics tell us that if we can only succeed in throwing away this mask, which has become part of our face, the physical, psychical mask that we now call our personality, then all our magnificent capacity for loving, acting, and serving will come into our lives. Shri Krishna, O mighty Arjuna, even if you believe the self to be subject to birth and death, you should not grieve. Death is inevitable for the living. Birth is inevitable for the dead. Since these are unavoidable, you should not grieve. Every creature is unmanifested at first, and then attains a manifestation, or bharata. When its end has come, it once again becomes unmanifested. What is there to lament in this? In spite of all the Lord's assurances about the immortality of the self, there still lurks in Arjuna's consciousness the thought, I am the body. When the body dies, I die. This is one of the occasions in the Gita when Sri Krishna teases Arjuna, telling him that even if he believes he is the body, even then he should not be afraid of death, because death is the natural consummation of the body's span of life. The Lord is forcing Arjuna to break through his wrong identification with the body, which is only the house in which he dwells. Through the practice of meditation, we will acquire the delightful incapacity to associate people very much with their physical appearance. If someone asks me, how tall is Jeff? I have to take time to try to picture him, then use a mental tape and try to remember his height. This is a healthy sign. Particularly when someone asks me how old a person is, it takes a certain amount of time for me to recall. When we do not associate people with their physical appearance, with their age, we are beginning to associate them with the Atman. The more we dwell upon the physical appearance and age of others, the more we are conscious of our own appearance and age. The mystics tell us we should be concerned less about these details of packaging and concerned more with the contents. When I look at people, I like to look at their eyes. These are the windows into the contents, which is the Lord. Gradually, as we become more and more conscious of the Atman, we will be looking straight at people through their eyes and deep into the Lord of love who is within.